And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is a Wednesday afternoon, and we are officially 10 days out from the beginning of the Rugby Championship. Next weekend, we will see Australia taking on Argentina, as well as the Springboks hosting New Zealand in the first of a doubleheader, back-to-back matches in South Africa next week up against New Zealand. It's going to be a pretty stacked evening because we've got South Africa versus New Zealand, which starts at 5 o'clock. After that, we'll obviously have our player rating show. And then from 8 o'clock, we'll pretty much, our build-up will begin for Argentina versus Australia, which is going to kick off at 9:10. So get your rest in next week, Friday night, because Saturday is going to be a pretty stacked day of rugby. In terms of rugby to come, we will be seeing the Blitzboks up in action this weekend. We will be live for a couple of those games for the select game of the Commonwealth, which is going to be pretty exciting. And I think that the Blitzboks are very well positioned to potentially really have a go. I think obviously Great Britain competing as a single side will be quite difficult. Fiji will obviously be up there, and I think that I still think that we are pretty well prepped to go all the way. Having said that, it's not actually Great Britain side. That's for the World Series next season. But we are taking on, I think it's Scotland, Malaysia, and Tonga in Pool B, and then it's New Zealand and England and Samoa who are the four teams, or the three teams who are likely to progress from Pool A. But in terms of how that will work, just quickly before we get onto the actual Springboks, we're taking on Malaysia at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, and we then take on Scotland on Saturday morning. And we're taking on where is it? Where our Tonga game is. Pretty sure we're playing 2 hours on Friday. Yeah, so Tonga is in the evening session on Friday, then Scotland in the morning, and then got quarterfinal one, which starts at 5:30 to 10:30 this Saturday will be the quarterfinals. Then the semi-finals will be on Sunday, 10:30. And then we'll obviously have the bronze medal match and the gold medal match. So hopefully we will see our Blitzboks do quite well. Our South African women are going to be very tough to try and get into sort of medal territory, because they've got Australia, Fiji, and Scotland in their group. So it's a very, very tight group. Only 2 groups. So there are no quarterfinals. It's just straight into semi-finals, to be honest. So if you don't qualify top 2, then you are out of the running. But yes, that's what we can look forward to for next week. But in terms of the Springboks, we will be having a media press conference in just under 2 hours. Jacques Inalba will be addressing the media. We will have that press conference up later, and it'll be quite a good press conference in terms of being able to get an idea of where the team is with regards to fitness of certain players, with regards to selection. We'll be able to account for why the likes of Marcel Coetzee, why Apele Fassi were released from the squad. We can get updates on Dwayne Vermeulen and Frans Steyn. And so I think it's going to be quite an interesting press conference, and we will have that up a little bit later. So until then, though, as I said, we are 10 days away from the Rugby Championship, and things are really starting to pick up a momentum at the moment. Obviously it's about, for New Zealand, it's about whether the All Blacks can bounce back, because they're under a huge amount of pressure, and in many ways in uncharted territory with regards to the pressure that they are under, because I don't think any All Black side has really been in a sort of situation where 18 months after from a World Cup, they are, the coaching staff hangs on a knife edge. And the problem is that you're not going to probably sack Ian Foster halfway through the Rugby Championship. Although you could in a way, because there is, after that second game, there is a 2-week break. There's a bye weekend on what is the sort of the 21st, 22nd of August. Cheers, Alex. No rugby on my birthday. So in theory, if they were to lose that second game on the 13th of August, they could be flying back, and if they were ready, they could have the coaching staff ready to then take them through the next sort of 14 days, which would give them opportunity to try and put some things to effect. But very unlikely that we will see Ian Foster getting sacked during the Rugby Championship. And again, it's all going to come down to results for next week, for example. But if they do lose back-to-back against the Boks and they do lose the Rugby Championship, you do think he has to go. And then they are facing the very awkward situation of there being literally outgoing tour, half a rugby championship and an incoming tour, you're looking at 9 tests, maybe. I don't know how many they're playing at the end of the year. I don't know if they're playing for 3 or 4, but you're looking at potentially 9 or 10 tests to take a side that is underperforming to the point that a coaching staff has been sacked, to turning them around and making them potential world champions, because they are always expected to compete for the World Cup. So it's funny that the Springboks are not playing particularly good rugby, and yet we will still walk into the rugby championship. Our coaching staff walks in with absolutely no chance of them being sacked. There's no chance, you know. Unless we literally lost almost every single game, or we lost two matches against New Zealand, 2 matches against Australia, then there'd be questions being asked. But I think there's next to no chance of our coaching staff being sacked or replaced or whatever. Also remembering that by the end of your tour, for example, Rassie Russell will actually be back in the coaching box. He's not allowed to be involved in match activities right now, but he will be towards the end of the year tour, and he will be back in the coaching box. He will be obviously touring with them, and he'll be back in the stadiums. Whether he'll be in the coaching box or whether he'll be on the side of the field remains to be seen. They have basically created rules which should limit him from being on the side of the field, because World Rugby were very triggered by that. But he will obviously then be back with the Springboks on match day. As Ben Swart is doing, the Ultimate Sharpshooter says, looking forward to that press conference. Most of the can't wait until the 6th of August. The summer is going by so fast. Ultimate Sharpshooter says, was sacking Plumtree and Moore the right option? If you look at their CVs, they're not bad at all. I don't think that they're addressed. I mean, I don't think it's been a case of sack the forward coach, sack the backline coach, now we'll be okay. I personally think that their problems lie much deeper than simply in those two coaches. For me, I think it's a very strange decision to sack John Plumtree weeks before playing in South Africa against South Africa, when you consider how much time he spent in South Africa. I mean, he was with the Sharks for, was it 5 years? So he spent 5 years in the country. So you'd think if there's one thing that he'd really be able to be valuable in the next couple of weeks, it would be knowing this rugby environment very well. But yeah, he did get the sack. And they have brought in the Crusaders' new forwards coach. There is also somebody in his name has completely left me now, but they brought in somebody who's I think Joe Schmidt is the now part of the selection committee, and also providing sort of strategy and guidance to Foster regarding a style of play. So he will also be assisting. But we don't know. We don't know if it's going to be enough. The question is the coaches the issue? Is it a selection issue? Is it a playing personnel issue? Are they maybe just in a period where the players they've got are not the players they had 8 years ago? Because that could also be the case, And look, I think it's, again, I look at the back line, I think that's a pretty special back line. You've got your Barretts running around there. You've got your Richie Mwangas. David Habib is a class player. Ricky Awani's played 50 tests. Sevi Reese, despite being a woman abuser, is a very good rugby player. Aaron Smith is probably one of the best scrum halves of all time. Damien McKenzie could be back in the frame very soon. So I think the backline-wise, they've got the talent. I look at the pack, and I just think that the forwards are not the forwards of a decade ago. It's not your Jerome Kano, Richie McCaw, Kieran Reid sort of players. It's not your Brodie Retallick in his absolute prime. It's not Simon Whitelock in his absolute prime. It's not your Wyatt Crockett's, your Owen Franks. It's not your Kevin Mialamus. It's that pack was incredible. And in many ways, I think that they were underappreciated because you had a backline that was just disgusting. You had Dan Carter next to Aaron Smith for a long time. What a combination they were. You had Ma Nanu, one of the best centers of all time. You had Ben Smith at fullback. You had remember, and during the time when they were just producing wings who would come in and be phenomenal and then go out. You think of, the players were tremendous at the time. So it could also be a time that maybe there's a little bit of dip of players who are either maybe not quite playing at their best ability, maybe in the best part of their career. There could be an issue with him, with some players maybe not being quite ready to take a step up to international rugby. So it could very well be more than just a coaching staff issue. We don't know. We'll only know when they start making changes. For example, if they made wholesale changes to the coaching staff and suddenly they started playing well, then you'll sit there saying, right, well, the coaching staff was the issue. But maybe, they wield an axe and they cut a whole bunch of players, bring in new players, and they start getting results. And you can sit there saying maybe it was a player issue. It's very difficult to know exactly what the issue is. What I would say is I think if you looked at the things that they need to fix, discipline, defensively, I don't think they're good enough at the moment. And a lot of people are looking at sort of structurally, are they structurally sound? And a lot of people saying they're not. And a lot of people who sort of I don't really do analysis, to be honest. I don't sit there with video clips and watch games back and sort of draw funny circles and stuff like that around them. I don't really do that. It's not really my expertise. I don't really have the time to do it, to be perfectly honest. So other people that do it, but that's the thing, then you lean on people that do. People that do sort of do that in quite a lot of depth have been sort of posting photos, posting GIFs, posting videos of areas of structurally, where structurally the All Blacks have come up short quite often. So that would indicate a coaching shortfall. Whether it's a case of the players not being able to understand the coaching blueprint, whether the coaching systems are actually wrong or not functional. Again, that's also not that simple. But put it this way, I don't think that the coaching decisions they made are going to make an immediate difference. I don't get that gut feeling that's going to just change the All Blacks all of a sudden. What I do think will change them and will make them a better side is the fact that they're under so much pressure and they're playing against their age-old rival in South Africa. So I do think they will lift their game. The question is it a case of them lifting the game? They could very well beat us twice, There's no reason that they couldn't beat us twice. But the question is, are they going to beat us twice because they're the better team? Or are these players going to be able to lift themselves up for the specific two occasions, get the job done, and then stumble again along the way? And then you're sitting there going, was the Springbok game a once-off, or, where do we stand? But Tim Van Berg saying, I hope you're well. Yeah, always well, always well. Had a pretty exciting meeting yesterday, which I think is going to hopefully help the channel a lot in the future. We're busy trying to sort out sponsors for the Rugby Championship. We might be going to Nelspruit next week to take you guys to the press conferences. So if you can get a sponsor sorted, then hopefully I will be in a car on the way to Nelspruit to take you guys with it, to take you on some stadium tours, go and see what Mbombela has to offer next week. That's what I want to try and do. Connie Matty says, who would be the most likely to replace Foster? Robertson? Yeah, I mean, everybody is saying that it's going to be Razor, who actually, interestingly, said he wants to win the World Cup with two different teams, which one would imagine would be like New Zealand and England. Always seems to be those two. I'd be very surprised if we're like New Zealand and South Africa, or he obviously wants to coach the All Blacks, but I'd be interested to see what other international team he would want to coach. I think Ireland would be a very good fit. I'd be surprised if he went the French route. I'd be surprised if he went the Australian route. He could go the Australian route, but yeah. Roberto says, do you think it's more a selection issue for the All Blacks rather than coaching? Spoke about that a little bit now. Who would you say going into the Rugby 2023 is the favourites? I reckon if the Boks don't pull another miracle, the Northern Hemisphere team would take it, such as a France or Ireland. I think France at home would be the favourites. I think it would very much be their World Cup to lose. I think it still will be their World Cup to lose. I think Ireland at the moment are playing like a team that could beat anybody on their day. So they stand in good stead. Whether they'll be able to lift themselves up on the day and during the tournament is another matter. The Springboks are defending champions, so you probably think the top four favourites are Springboks, Ireland, France, and then either in England or in New Zealand, depending on who sort of. I mean, New Zealand should be one part of the four, but if they continue this sort of downward trajectory, then you might sit there thinking maybe they're not the favourites next year. So how do you feel about Robertson debating himself to coach another nation? Yeah, I think we're going to see more of it. I do. Everybody keeps talking about the fact that apparently England are gunning for Rassie Erasmus and that they are very much keen to try and get him in for post next World Cup. And the reality is, a lot of people are getting very upset about it. But the reality is, I think we will start seeing more of that. It's becoming a very global game. So just as Eddie Jones, is coaching England, just as Warren Gatton coached France and then the British and Irish Lions, I do think we will start seeing coaches coaching around the world as it becomes a bit more of a global game, a bit more, the barriers start to sort of cease to exist. you got Johan van Graan, who is left South Africa, gone and coached in Ireland, now going to coach in England. So there's nothing to say that he couldn't potentially coach a national side of another nation. So I think it's the start of what will become quite common practice. And it happens in lots of sports. You know, you look at cricket, for example, and Nicky Arthur's coached about 4 international teams. Um, you know, you've got Flower, who's been with England. You know, we had Otis Gibson down here in South Africa. It's not uncommon. You know, Brendan McCullum currently coaching England. It's not uncommon for players of other nationalities to go and coach other international teams. And I think we'll see that more and more in rugby as it becomes a bit more of a global game. Eddie says, a recent article by Rugby 365 said that Ireland could become South Africa's next big rival due to the URC. I think it would take a while before they... you'd have to do a lot to eclipse the rivalry with the All Blacks. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. I think maybe it could foster into that with the URC in terms of the local sides becoming very much rivals in between them. I'd like to see Scotland and Wales sort of up their standards a bit so they can kind of join the fray. But the URC was very much, by the end of it at least, South Africa and Ireland sides. There were no Welsh sides in the playoffs and there's one Scottish side. So, but I do think it'll be a very long time before the rivalry of the Springboks and the All Blacks is replaced. Ludiso says this Bok pack isn't as dominant as it was under our previous forward coach, in my opinion. I think it depends because they did dominate the British Irish Lions twice last year, and I would say they dominated a lot of the teams last year, even when we lost. I think at the moment it's not functioning at its as best as it could. The current pack, for example, but again, sometimes it is a case of playing together for a while and then it sort of starts clicking into gear. We saw how the pack dominated Wales in the second half of the first game and the third game, for example. This pack can definitely dominate sides. Is it as dominant as it was at the World Cup? Hard to say. But as I said, that's why I think that post the Wales games, I think the next 4 games will be a very big telling, or rather indication of where we are as a side. Because it will take a while to sort of get back to the swing of things and start playing into best. You're unfortunately not going to start your first test of the year playing your best rugby. You'll be at your absolute peak. So, and that's not an excuse for results and stuff like that, but you just obviously would get better. You know, same as in a World Cup, you kind of hope to improve throughout the World Cup, and that you're not playing your best rugby at the start of the tournament and kind of going back from there. You want to sort of build and make sure you're peaking at the right time. So I do think, in theory, we should start playing our best rugby now in the next sort of week or two against Australia, for example, and then hopefully be primed for a really good end-of-year tour where things are really quite gelled and quite settled. S-Box says second Plumtree was premature and bad timing. He knows the SA condition structure is better than most. SA won the last World Cup in France. Joan says, look, I trust the SA coaching staff, but I still don't agree with how they manage game time. How the hell are players supposed to improve that don't get consistent game time? Thoughts? I think the biggest problem is that is that there isn't a lot of game time available. That's why I think the end of year tour is going to be so much fun because there are rumors. Well, obviously we've already got a midweek game confirmed against Bristol, and we've also got a potentially rumored SAA or SA 15 Springbok Select 15 or whatever you're going to call it up against a New Zealand 15, which would be really cool. Playing like our B team versus their B team would be phenomenal at the end of the year. And I think we're potentially going to be having 7 matches within a month. So 2 things. First of all, 7 matches means 7 sets of 80 minutes. So it's a lot of rugby that can be played in terms of getting minutes. And also, it also means it's a lot of rugby that some people can't play all the games. So you're going to have to rotate. You're going to have to use your squad. And as a result, I mean, you're looking at 560 minutes within a 4-week period. No, no player can play 560 minutes of basically international standard rugby within a 4-week period. You know, you're usually playing 320 minutes. So you're playing almost half that on a usual basis. So that's why I think we're going to see a lot of game time. And I think that ideally, it would have been nice if we had a 4th test now in the incoming series, but with the URC, with the change of schedule, it was impossible. You know, in the past, depending on sort of schedule and stuff like that, there was an opportunity potentially with time-wise to have had maybe a SAA game versus a, I don't know, a Samoa, Tonga, or whatever, as a sort of a pre-season game for some of the players who are available. We didn't have that time this year. So, difficult. Xbox, I hate it when we underestimate our own team and make the other team's favorites. It's not arrogance, it's being confident in our own team. I'll put my money in the box, not France. Connie is agreeing there. Box for the win, and considering we haven't played our best 23 for any game, we're always missing a few, such as Arceus, Neymar, and Dwayne from Newland. Box coaching, building depth. Thanks. Is there any truth in the rumor that Andy Farrell is moving to the New England's coach? I think that they would be very smart to go that route if they did. Look, again, it will only be after the World Cup. First of all, he's not going to leave Ireland before the World Cup because I think he's building a side that he wants to go. I think he's building a side that he thinks can compete for the World Cup. But if I was England, I would certainly be looking at him after the World Cup and saying, "Come after the World Cup, try see what you can do with Ireland, and then come to." Because I think that he has. I personally think he could very well be on the leading candidate to be the next British Irish Lions coach, for example, if it's not going to Gatland again. Which I personally wouldn't go with Gatland again. I would go with Andy Farrell and include Gregor Townsend and look at like a Matt Proudfoot, for example. So, but I think that he's definitely going to. I'd be very surprised if he does another 4 years at Ireland. I do think he might leave them after the World Cup, in which case England would be the obvious place for him to go. Benedict says, can't wait for the World Cup in 2023, 2031. We are sure to be champs. The whole every 12 years thing. Who would you pick as a fly half if by chance part of the Yankees are injured? Most people would go Damian Willems. So I really don't want to put Damian Willems at fly half. I think he's doing very well without the fly half responsibilities. I don't want to re-add them, but if it's a short-term thing, we can add it. We can put him in there. Johan Claesson is the third choice fly half, but he's not going to be fit until the end of your tour. So you'd probably have to bring in somebody, and then you're looking at Chris Smith, Monty Liebach, Jordan Hendrickson. I'd probably go with Chris Smith. I think he'd probably slot in the easiest. Monty Liebach's a more exciting player, but I think it will take a while for him to adjust to the Bok game plan. And Jordan Hendrickson is obviously still pretty young. Tennis says, for the game next week, Vermeulen would be on my bench. Can't just walk into the starting line side soon. PSF Toy would be on the bench. Give Master a start at 7. Nauru at 14. For me, Stephen or Oxford for the start. The Springbok coach, I can tell you right now, Dave Vermeulen, if he's going to play next week, will start. I can basically not guarantee it, but I can tell you right now that if he is fit enough to play, he will start because the Springbok management have always started players when they come back from injury, and the reason they've said is that you want to be able to bring them off if they're having a tough time. So you put Dwayne Smith on and he's gassed after 30 minutes. He's gassed after 30 minutes. Quokka Smith comes on and plays 60 or 50 minutes. Whereas if you, for example, start from on the bench and you chuck him on, somebody has an injury and you throw him on at 30 minutes and he's finished after 30 minutes, you're now sitting there going, well, great, we've now got 20 minutes of Vermeulen who's really struggling around the park. So I can tell you right now, I reckon we will see a loose trio of Sia Khaleesi, Peter Steph's Toy, and Dwayne Vermeulen. The bench, if we go to the 6-2 split, will be interesting because it would probably, for me, be Mostert, Visa, Quokka Smith. I would imagine that would be the bench. That's where I think we're probably at. Connie says, I reckon there are two possibilities. Chris Smith or Monty Liebach both had great US seasons and deserve the call-up. Yeah, we won't go more now. But Jean says, good point, Steve. I mean, Creel, Coetzee, and others play 1 to 2 games a year. If I'm gets injured tomorrow, then we'd have to bring in an undercooked, out-of-form Creel. Then the public will criticize him 100%. Had a good look at the World Cup draw, and it's clear the quarterfinal will be the Box toughest game in the World Cup. At quarterfinal stage, the Box are normally settled. We will beat whoever we meet. Thanks. Connie, Stephen, quick one. I've been thinking for a while, why doesn't the Box experiment with a player like Quokka Smith on the wing? Who would stop him? I don't think I wouldn't start him on the wing, put it that way. I think it would be fun to see him running around on the wing if there was an injury, but I certainly wouldn't start him. I think he's too valuable in the loose within the forward pack. I think he's too valuable at the breakdown. I mean, think about the amount of turnovers he made against Wales. Think about how good he is over the ball. Think about how valuable he is to a scramble defense because he has that freedom to roam. Whereas if he was playing on the wing, he'd be far more limited in regards to where he can get involved. He wouldn't be able to sort of floating around and on the scramble defense. He wouldn't be able to get at various breakdowns and affect the turnovers he does. So I think it would be fun to see him on the wing for a little bit, but I certainly wouldn't start him there, for example. Junaid says, "Hi, can I please have your honest opinion on Mapimpi as our first choice wing?" I don't think Mapimpi's played his best few games, but to be fair, I don't think we've given him the best opportunities. I don't think he's had phenomenal chances. The one thing I would say, however, when everybody's sort of saying that we need to look at dropping Mapimpi, is who would you drop him for? Because if you're looking at that squad, you know, Kirkley Arendse is primarily played at 14, 15. He could probably play at 11. I'm sure he could. But then again, you know, if you're going to have Kirkley Arendse at 11, who are you going to have at 14? You're going to look at Warwick Galant. You're going to look at, you know, Willie LaRue. You're going to look at Jesse Creel. You know, we dropped Apelele Fassi, who would be the second choice 11, has usually been the second choice 11. So I think that Mapimpi at the moment is not playing it as best rugby. I think let's see how he goes in the rugby championship, and if he continues to play poorly, then we will have to make a big decision. But it's not helped by the fact that Cheslin Colby's got a broken jaw and Spoon Corsi is still coming back from injury. So we are down 2 regular wings. We also, not to mention, I mean, he's not selected, but you know, Piwa Dianti, for example, if he was available, we wouldn't be worrying about Mapimpi because, fun fact, I think if a Piwa Dianti hadn't gotten banned, we wouldn't have the Mapimpi story. Piwa Dianti would have scored that try in the Rugby World Cup final because he was nailed on 11. Nobody was going to move him. So, you know, it's funny how things go, but at the moment, I don't think there's a natural replacement within the squad for Mapimpi to be dropped. But and as I said, given the fact we've got 2 of our regular wings injured at the moment. As an All Blacks fan, we will lose to Box if we don't sort out tight 5 set piece and also defending midfield. That's what All Blacks are lacking. Got to stop there, Lindy. England will win the World Cup, and I'm not happy about it. Joseph, I owe you $100 for Ireland winning the series. You do actually. I remember that. I remember that chat. It was in the live show just before the game. Must admit, I didn't think that I didn't foresee the Ireland winning, so I can't say I was busy counting those dollars before the game. But yeah, I can fully understand if you can't do it. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hold you to it. It's times are tough at the moment. John says, if I find a Merva coming in, only position the thing is wing Mapimpi being found wanting, especially on defense. Colby being injured, both rugby championship. Aronson looks good. I want Moody to come in. He just looks like $1 million. Yeah, but Kenan Moody, whatever the injury is, needs to take his sweet time coming back because we can't ruin another youngster. Joan says, I swear if we use Dion Free right, he's going to save us the most important times by winning, holding on penalties. France Box, Ireland, All Blacks, only 2 of these can make the semis in the World Cup 23. How crazy is that? 100%. We just start Arendse Galant LaRue at 14 against New Zealand. I keep saying. But I actually might ask that of Jacques, whether Creel is an option at 14. But I'll try and ask that this afternoon. Tanner says 6-2 will be too risky. Last year, what would have happened if, of course, he got injured and we brought on poor Willie? Would be a loss. I definitely think we will go with 6-2 split, though. Joan says, Tim Talbot says, Mapimpi touched the ball twice in 3 games. Give him a break. 100%. Agreed. I still think Dianti is much faster than Colby. Guys, Dianti was ridiculous, eh? Like, if you go watch, I think we've forgotten how good he was. Obviously, we were already pissed off at him and really upset, and it is very frustrating. But that guy, I mean, I was watching some of the highlights of that Wellington victory in 2018. Also made me being very bleak about the fact that Warren Whiteley is not a World Cup winner because he definitely deserved to be and definitely would have been had it not been for his injuries. But Piwa Dianti was on another level. Absolute different level. Defensively, he was sound. He was scoring tries for fun. He was just phenomenal. And he could play it outside centre if we needed to as well. So, yeah, as I said, lots of people are saying that they never want to see him play rugby again. I, for one, cannot wait to see him play rugby next year because it's fun watching him play rugby. He's one of those players that you want to watch, that you enjoy watching, that you get excited to go and watch. You know, it's like a Daniel McKenzie. You go to a game and you're like, Daniel McKenzie's playing. Like, what is he going to do? Dianti was that player 2 years ago. We are going to wrap up. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of things to do. We've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes to try and make you guys experience this channel that much better. So I do need to get to some meetings and sort some things out. But yeah, please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. As I said, if you'd like to become a member and support the channel, please do consider it. The link is on the top of the pinned comment there. Any small contribution helps, and helps things like getting us to Nels Great, so that we can bring you guys content and press conference and stuff like that. But we will have the Springmark press conference up later. Shocking about addressing the media at 3 o'clock, so we will have that up at around 4ish, I'd imagine. So make sure you look out for that. Thank you very much for watching. Keep safe, and we'll chat to you guys